We bet you think you know everything about Peppa Pig and that you're familiar with all the funny theories and mistakes that happen on the show. But have you really heard all of the nonsensical details in the story of the world's most famous pink pig? For example, Daddy Pig doesn't know how to use a hammer and a nail, even though he's a construction engineer. As everyone knows, Daddy Pig is a big pig who works on the construction of important houses and buildings. In fact, he designed the entire project for Mr. Wolf's house and can even be said to have helped with many other buildings around town. But in the episode Daddy Pig Hangs a Picture, we see that a simple task like using a nail to hang a picture on the wall turns into a huge challenge for him. First, he makes a big crack in the bricks, and then he breaks a part of the wall. Sure, nobody needs to know everything, but even someone who doesn't work in construction can use a hammer properly. Do you have an explanation for this? In today's video, we'll see scenes like this one that make no sense in Peppa Pig. In the episode Mr. Bull's New Road, some very nonsensical things happen. In this story, Peppa and her family are on their way to the vet because the family's goldfish needs to have a checkup. Everything's fine until Mr. Bull shows up in the middle of the road and says they're tearing it down to build a new one, which doesn't make any sense because the road already exists. But it gets worse when he tells the vet, Mrs. Hamster, that they will have to demolish the animal hospital immediately to build there. That also doesn't make sense because that's not how major construction works. When you tear down a building to make way for a road, the people who live and work in the buildings to be demolished need to be notified well in advance, not on the day it's happening. But the most nonsensical part of this episode is that Peppa, a 4-year-old pig, is the one who comes up with the solution to the problem. She suggests building a tunnel. But how? Mr. Bull is an adult who works in construction, and it makes no sense for a 4-year-old pig to solve a road-building problem that the responsible adult didn't notice. Not to mention Daddy Pig is an engineer, so he should have solved the problem without needing a child to do it. Another thing that doesn't make sense in Peppa Pig is that episode where Susie was going to move away because her mom, Mrs. Sheep, got a new job on the other side of the world. At the end of the episode, Mommy Sheep finds out that she didn't get the job, but that's very strange because when someone receives such an important job offer where they and their family need to move across the world, the decision should already be made. In other words, it doesn't make any sense that Mrs. Sheep even got that phone call in the first place because it was probably already decided that she was moving with Susie. But what's really weird is that she says that both she and her daughter would stay in the city forever, and she even seems sad about it. Maybe you don't know this, but when someone is so good at their job that an important company seeks you out from across the world, it means you're really good. This means Mrs. Sheep could leave the city whenever she wanted. It's strange that she's upset about not getting the job. Have you ever had to solve road construction problems? Comment with #genius so we can get to know ya. Speaking of school, there's a visitor who shouldn't be showing up there. Have you ever wondered why Mr. Bull goes to the town school so many times if he has no kids? One example is when Madame Gazelle teaches her students to play various instruments from different parts of the world, but just when the parents come to pick up their kids, Mr. Bull is there. But how come? The narrator even says the parents come to pick up their children, but Mr. Bull doesn't have kids. There isn't a single little one under his care. It's true that he's married to Mrs. Waffle now, and we've seen a little cow who hangs out with her, but this character doesn't even appear at the town school, and besides, she wasn't there in this episode. This is just one example of how he keeps showing up at the school without needing to. It really just doesn't make sense. Have you ever wondered why the school roof in Peppa's school always has problems? You've definitely seen not one, but several episodes where the school roof needs repairs. But there's something strange about this story. It's not just that the roof broke so many times, but the fact that it's only fixed when there's a fun event at school. Daddy Pig has jumped, have fallen, from a plane to fix the school roof. The kids have had to run a fun fair to raise money from their parents, and once again, Daddy Pig had to run a marathon. All of this was done to raise money for the school roof repair. But wait a second, the people giving the money for the repair are the kids' parents, the same people who are spending money to do events like renting a plane for Daddy Pig to jump from, or buying stalls for the school fair. If the moms and dads have money to fix their kids' school, why do they need to spend more money renting planes and stalls to raise money that's already theirs? Do you see what we're talking about? The parents are paying for the repairs, so there's no need for them to do an event to give their own money. You know that the very existence of a talking potato in the show doesn't make sense, but that's not what we're here to talk about. In the episode where Mr. Potato goes to Peppa's town to open a new sports center, something really out of the ordinary happens. The giant talking vegetable tells the children to eat vegetables and fruits. But does that make any sense? Yes, eating these things is important for your health, but why would a potato say that? Theoretically, we're talking about creatures from the same species as Mr. Potato, maybe a cousin of his, or perhaps an ant who ends up being eaten. We bet a vegetable telling people to eat other vegetables can only be a crime. You know what else is illegal? Not subscribing to the channel or turning on the notification bell. Fix that right now before you get a visit from the police. Elephants are very intelligent animals. Their brains have an incredible memory, but Edmund is just a 2-year-old calf, right? If you've been watching Peppa since the beginning, you know that Emily's brother is truly a genius way ahead of his time. He should be in college instead of kindergarten, but this is strange. Not that little elephants can't be super smart, but regardless of that, a 2-year-old child doesn't have enough life experience to study that much. What fans haven't realized is that all of the knowledge in Edmund's head must have come from studying, but the amount of things he knows is so vast that it would take much more than 2 years to learn. Doubt it? Grandpa Rabbit is already elderly, and Edmund knows things that took him years to learn. The little elephant doesn't have enough life to know what he knows, and that's why the theory that he's an adult in disguise is so popular with the show's fans. Unlike Edmund, something that doesn't make sense is that George can't communicate properly with people. Everyone knows very well that he's a little pig, but it's definitely about time he could say more than just dinosaur. Yes, we've heard him say other things like mommy, but that's it. He can't form full sentences even though he understands everything the others say. Do you see how that doesn't make sense? If George knows what others are saying and he himself can speak, why can't he speak properly? In the world of Peppa, animals talk, including potatoes and other vegetables. Also, Mrs. Rabbit seems to be everywhere at once, but there's another thing that really doesn't make sense. The characters go to space. In fact, this has happened several times. Grandpa Rabbit has already taken Grandma Pig and Madame Gazelle to the moon. And do you know what's even stranger? George and Peppa went there too. And when the rocket was taking off, they were both without astronaut suits. And yes, the rocket was already out of the planet, where there's no air to breathe. How did Peppa and George manage to breathe outside of Earth? This definitely makes no sense at all. Episode 13 of Season 5 of Peppa Pig has one of the funniest stories in the series. In this one, Peppa goes with her mom and brother to the vet for a checkup for the family's goldfish. Just like what happens in the episode about the road we talked about earlier, but this time things get even weirder. First, when they're at the vet's office, the phone rings, and it's Dr. Elephant calling her for an emergency with a lizard. Then, Dr. Hamster goes to the scene in the veterinary clinic's plane, but this doesn't make sense because animal hospitals don't usually have planes. What's even stranger is that Dr. Hamster abandons the goldfish's checkup and takes Peppa and her family along for the rescue. Second, when they arrive in the mountains, the only problem was that the lizard was upside down, and all they needed to do was help it turn the right way up. Third, after that, there are 2 more calls, one from Grandpa Pig to rescue Polly the parrot, who's seasick, and another from Daddy Pig, who asked for help with ducklings stuck on the company's roof. But everything gets weird because Dr. Hamster is a vet, not a firefighter. She shouldn't be rescuing animals stuck on roofs. This is really strange. It's pretty obvious that Peppa Pig is a fun show that makes us laugh while following the adventures of the world's most famous piglet. But did you know this cartoon hides many creepy facts that will send shivers down your spine and make you tremble in fear? Did you know that Susie Sheep's family probably has to supply wool for clothing stores? This is a rarely explored secret in the show, but anyone can tell it's a seriously creepy fact. In the real world, people wear clothes and accessories made from animal leather, like fur coats and crocodile leather bags. But in a show like Peppa Pig, this is really bizarre because animals behave like regular people. In the episode where George gets his clothes all muddy, the pig family goes to Miss Rabbit's store to buy him something new to wear. It's already weird enough that George only has one outfit and has to go there without pants, but things get even stranger when Miss Rabbit offers him a wool coat. This type of fabric comes from the wool of sheep like Susie, which means these poor sheep have to provide their own skin for clothing production. That's seriously creepy, because it would be like tearing off a part of your body to keep other people warm. Do they get paid for it, or is Miss Rabbit exploiting them? We'll talk more about this mysterious character later in the video. There are many theories about Miss Rabbit's true identity, since she always seems to be everywhere at once. One of the most famous theories is that she's a secret agent spying on the pig family, but there's even stronger evidence suggesting that she is actually an evil entity, like a vampire. In fact, Miss Rabbit seems to be an even more powerful vampire, since she can be in multiple places at the same time. But you want solid evidence to prove this theory, right? Alright, but be careful, you might get scared. First, let's look at the episode The Queen, where Miss Rabbit receives an award for being the hardest worker in the country. There's a scene where she walks past a mirror and her reflection is completely missing. Everyone knows that vampires like Madame Gazelle don't have reflections, and in this scene, Miss Rabbit's ears should have been visible, but they aren't because she has no soul. The next piece of evidence is her ability to move much faster than a normal rabbit. In the episode The Aquarium, she's outside selling tickets when, out of nowhere, she appears inside one of the tanks cleaning the glass, and then suddenly she's at the cafe counter on the other side of the building. How did she get out of the water and teleport across the place without anyone noticing? Super suspicious. Could she be the one who turned Madame Gazelle into a vampire? Speaking of suspicious things, another creepy fact is that Mr. Fox eats other animals. Whenever a character eats in Peppa Pig, the animators take care to make sure the food is always a vegetable. For example, Freddy Fox eats carrot soup at Rebecca Rabbit's house. But things get really creepy when Grandma Pig goes to put his chickens to bed and finds Mr. Fox about to feast on them. In the zoo episode, Madame Gazelle is terrified of Mr. Lion and Mrs. Crocodile, afraid that she'll be eaten. If she's that nervous, it must mean that it's a real possibility, and that's terrifying. That means some characters actually eat each other. Sure, in the real world we also eat other animals, but seeing it happen in the children's cartoon is just plain weird. We know for a fact that there's a missing child in the Peppa Pig universe, maybe even two, but we'll get to that soon. First, let's talk about Claire the cow, the daughter of Mummy Cow. In Peppa's world, all the kids play together, but this one character has never even spoken to Peppa, making her a huge mystery that fills us with fear. Fans have given her the name Claire, and she seems to live in town with Mummy Cow's family. But why is this character still missing? Was she kidnapped? Is she sick? It's a mystery that gives us chills. Do you prefer cows or pigs? Comment #pig so we can get to know ya. If Peppa Pig were a horror movie, they would definitely explore Madame Gazelle being a blood-sucking vampire. You already know she doesn't have a reflection in mirrors, that she's way too old to still be alive, and that she doesn't feel cold, even when swimming in nearly frozen water. Every vampire needs one thing to survive, and you know exactly what that is. Could it be that Madame Gazelle became a teacher just to have easy access to her food supply? Oh my goodness, could this explain where Claire the cow went? Maybe that's why Mr. Bull is always at school. He's investigating the vampire. The official Peppa Pig website once posted an image featuring Peppa's twin sister. Her name might be Olivia, and she could be the second missing child in town. Check out these strange details. This character might live in the basement, unable to communicate with the outside world for some reason. Maybe because of an illness, or maybe because she's pure evil. Another piece of evidence for her existence is in the computer game leaderboard that Mummy Pig is playing. Look closely at the final name on the list, which has a score of 142 eggs. We know who all the others are: GEO for George, PEP for Peppa, GMP and GPP for Grandpa and Granny Pig, MMP for Mummy Pig, SUZ for Susie Sheep. But who's the last one? OOP could only be Olivia. Did you know that in real life there was an actual cloned sheep named Dolly? We believe Susie might be a clone of her mother as a tribute to this surprising fact. One of the reasons for this suspicion is that Susie's father has never been introduced in the show. But even more than that, Susie is practically an exact copy of her mother, unlike the other kids, who look different from their parents. Take Peppa and Mummy Pig for example. As mother and daughter, they have different tastes in clothes. But with Susie, she looks just like her mom. In the episode where they appear as adults, you can see that Susie is practically a replica of her mother. Besides, when they were about to move to another country, it was probably to a cloning lab because it was time to make more clones. Could it be that the lab is owned by Miss Rabbit, and that's where she gets the wool for her coats? Have you ever noticed that the Queen might live alone even though she's an elderly woman? In the scenes at the palace where the animated version of Queen Elizabeth II lives, we can see that no one else is living with her, not even the guards who should be protecting her. There isn't a single servant in the castle, so much so that when the Queen needs to put on her boots, she goes looking for them herself. But this wouldn't be possible in real life, since a monarch would have many assistants for tasks like that. Letting an elderly woman live alone in such a huge castle is both dangerous and creepy for a children's cartoon. You know who's never alone? Those who subscribe and turn on notifications here on the channel. One of the strangest things about Peppa Pig is that everyone seems to be stuck in time. Peppa should already be 20 years old since the show first aired in the early 2000s. The fact that she has only celebrated one birthday while 6 Christmas episodes have aired proves our point. This town is caught in a time loop. Another clue is Edmund Elephant. He's way too young to know so much about science. And this isn't even about him being a genius. He might be, but even geniuses need time to study. At only 2 years old, he shouldn't be able to answer such deep scientific questions. Something must have happened that trapped all the characters in this bizarre time loop. The rabbits have tunnels all over the city and maybe even under people's houses. That's super creepy because it could mean the rabbit family has secret passageways beneath their neighbors' properties. At Rebecca's house, we see that they have such a huge underground property, which might explain how Miss Rabbit moves so fast. Maybe she even has superpowers. If this theory is true, then we're dealing with something seriously disturbing. Imagine your neighbor sneaking into your house at night, watching you sleep, or even stealing your food. We also know that the rabbit family's land is massive because they live underground. But here's the big question: how did they escape the flood? In the rainy episode, we learned that everyone lives on hills to avoid the water, but that wouldn't apply to the rabbits. So yes, there's proof that they have secret tunnels all over the place. Maybe the rabbits have tunnels because they're filming a secret reality show and the town's residents don't even know that they're on TV. Sounds crazy? Here's the evidence. The proof that there's a camera filming the characters is in the episode where they go shopping for George's new clothes. When the pig family jumps in the mud, the dirt splashes onto the camera lens, proving that we're watching them through a recording. With this evidence, we can conclude that every time an episode starts and zooms in on the characters, it's because there's an actual camera filming. Miss Rabbit is everywhere because she works for the television network as the show's producer, along with her family. They're keeping an eye on the pigs. And when Peppa appears on TV and talks to the camera, she's literally introducing the show alongside her family. That would support another theory, that they all know they're being filmed and that this is just one big TV show. Creepy. Last but not least, one of the hardest things to watch in Peppa Pig is how poorly Daddy Pig is treated. Like when he fell from an airplane and no one cared. Or when he had to run a marathon almost entirely on his own with barely any help. He could have seriously collapsed. Or when everyone forgot Father's Day and made him a terrible cake as an apology. One of the worst moments was when Peppa took her dad's winter coat and put it on a snowman, leaving him shivering in the freezing cold. That's just cruel. You know what's not cruel? Knowing you can always count on us. We've picked out 2 more videos for you to watch. See you in the next one.